Hey class. So today I'd like to talk about poetry and why it's important not just in expressing our feelings, but how poetry can be applied to the world in different ways. To talk about this, we'll be discussing Javier Zamora's Second Attempt Crossing. Javier Zamora is a Salvadorian writer and poet with a bachelor's from the University of California, Berkeley, and a master's in fine arts from New York University. Zamora was born in La Herradura, El Salvador, and immigrated to the United States at the age of 9. This journey, immigrating from El Salvador to the US, took Zamora about 2 months. Originally, it was supposed to take him 2 weeks, which he traveled with his grandpa. But after those 2 weeks, his grandpa had to go back to El Salvador. So for the remainder of the 2 months that Zamora took to get to the US, he was completely alone. Now, Zamora began writing poetry as a way to cope with his experiences in El Salvador, his journey from El Salvador to the US, and his experiences living in the US as an undocumented immigrant. And so the poem we will be talking about today comes from his book, Unaccompanied. And the poem we'll be reading today is called Second Attempt Crossing. Second Attempt Crossing is Zamora recalling an experience he had with a man who saved his life during his journey to the United States. And so I will read to you Zamora's poem, Second Attempt Crossing. For Chino. In the middle of that desert that didn't look like sand and sand only, in the middle of those acais, whiptails, and coyotes, someone yelled, La Migra! And everyone ran. In that dried creek where 40 of us slept, we turned to each other and you flew from my side in the dirt. Black-throated sparrows in dawn, hitting the tops of mesquites beautifully. Against a herd of legs, you sprinted back toward me. I jumped on your shoulders and we ran from the white trucks. It was then the gun, ready to press its index. I said, freeze, Chino, para, por favor. So I wouldn't touch their legs that kicked you. You pushed me under your chest and I've never thanked you. Beautiful Chino, the only name I know to call you by. Farewell, your tattooed chest, the M, the S, the 13. Farewell, the phone number you gave me when you went east to Virginia and I went west to San Francisco. You called me twice a month. Then your cousin said the gang you ran from in San Salvador found you in Alexandria. Farewell, your brown arms that shielded me then, that shield me now. From La Migra. So after reading this poem, I'd like to break it down a little bit for you guys and kind of summarize it into something small that you can understand without having to go through the whole thing. So in the first stanza, we can see that Zamora is describing the setting that they were in. They were in a desert. They were all crowded in a ditch, sleeping together. And then the Migra comes and finds them. Once they realize that they've been discovered, the crowd panicked. They took off running, and Zamora was left there in the dirt by himself. Luckily for Zamora, this character, this man that he encountered, Chino, he noticed Zamora and he ran back to help him and put him on his shoulders and started running to get away from the Migra. Unfortunately, the Migra officers pulled out their guns and began to catch up to them. And so Zamora asks Chino, he begs him to stop because he doesn't want him to get shot. And these officers begin to beat down on Chino and Zamora. But this man who had no relation to Zamora whatsoever, out of the kindness of his heart, protected him, wrapped his arms around him, and kept him from being beat. So often we see that poetry is used as a form of self-expression. We're often told, when given assignments given an assignment to write a poem, it's usually us expressing some feelings, some unspoken feelings that we may not have discussed before, or something that is dear to us. Now, it's important to read poetry because not only is it a way to express yourself, but poetry can be a form of activism. It could be a way to bring awareness to certain situations, just like Zamora did. So Zamora brings awareness to the traumas that come with immigrating, the traumas that have been inflicted on him as a child that he should have never had to face. You know, if we go through other poems in Zamora's Unaccompanied, we see works that write about why he left El Salvador. His family had left because they were escaping a war that was going on. And then he writes about how he feels when he comes to the US and how he is treated. So poetry is not just some weird combination of words that, you know, we don't understand, but poetry has meaning and symbolism and can help us to see things, help us to see struggles that we might not have understood beforehand. And so after reading this poem and after this lesson, I'd like to ask you to take a minute and see what this poem means to you, or if you can recall any other poems that may have brought awareness to you, poems that may have helped you understand somebody else's struggle. That's all for today, so thank you.